Welcome to this Better Business Bureau Building Trust in Trying Times webinar. I'm your host, Dale Dixon. Today, the pressure to generate big ideas can be overwhelming. We know that big ideas are critical in these fast-paced, ever-changing times. But when it comes to breakthrough ideas, we often freeze up. So instead of shooting for the Nobel Prize or the $10 billion IPO, the most brilliant innovators focus on big, little breakthroughs. Three important words for today: small creative acts that unlock the brilliant rewards over time. By building a habit of daily creativity, organizations can enjoy a high volume of those small wins in addition to long-term sustainable success. So the person leading us through that process today is a 5-time tech entrepreneur, hypergrowth CEO, 2-time New York Times bestselling author, a venture capitalist, and keynote speaker on a mission to drive creativity, innovation, and reinvention. You're going to meet this person in just a moment. First, a little bit of housekeeping for us today. This webinar is live for BBB accredited businesses. If that's you, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking an oath to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and really raising the bar for trust in the marketplace. We are asking that if you have questions, make sure and use that Q&A box that is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Our guest today is going to be answering questions and would love to hear from you as well. While you're in that Q&A box, look for the upvote little button. So if you see a question that resonates with you, you can click the thumbs up, and that's going to upvote that. And those questions will be pushed to the top of the queue for us as we answer those questions today. So without further ado, Josh Linkner started his career as a jazz guitarist. He's been the founder and CEO of 5 tech companies, which sold for a combined value of over $200 million. He's also a deeply experienced business leader, venture capitalist, top-rated keynote speaker, and author of 4 books, the New York Times bestsellers Disciplined Dreaming and The Road to Reinvention, as well as his latest book, Hacking Innovation. And yes, he still plays a mean jazz guitar. His website is joshlinkner.com. Josh, so good to have you on the webinar today. And with that, I'm going to say the floor is yours. We look forward to this.
Dale, thank you. And thanks to everybody who's joining today. Thanks to the Better Business Group. I mean, trust is so paramount, not only in challenging times, but in good times as well. And I have such deep respect for the great work that you're doing. Also, before we dive in, I just want to make sure that everybody's safe and healthy. I know everyone's struggling to take care of their families and their loved ones and their businesses. So with deep respect, I'm excited to share some ideas with you that I hope will be helpful to you in these unprecedented times. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen and let's dive in. Okay. As Dale mentioned, often people think of innovation, frankly, incorrectly. We think of innovation as these giant breakthroughs, inventing a new drug therapy or some tech breakthrough. But in that context, you might say, how does that apply to us? I like flipping it upside down. Really what most of us have learned about innovation is wrong, that it has to be gigantic to count, that it's only for people wearing a hoodie or a lab coat. Big little breakthroughs is a concept that creativity is accessible to every single human being, regardless of your background, your race, age, gender, field of study, etc. In other words, as human beings, we all have enormous creative capacity. We are hardwired to be creative. Now that may manifest in different ways. I play jazz guitar pretty well. I can't draw a stick figure if I tried. So you can use the elements of creativity, inventive thinking, creative problem solving to drive your businesses to the next level, to take care of your families in these challenging times, even to make a difference in our communities. So let's take a look at some examples on how to do just that. Children's Hospital, University of Pittsburgh. Who are their customers? Sick kids and their families. The leaders of the hospital, they wanted to create a better experience for those kids. What's the expected approach? Maybe softer pillows. But they took an unexpected approach, a big little breakthrough approach. These are the window washers. So yeah, they dressed up the window washers like superheroes. So you got Batman and Superman. They're now rappelling from the roof, entertaining the kids. Absolute game changer. It takes the attention away from the medical care. The kids look forward to it for days. Forget why they were there in the first place. So is this going to make the cover of a magazine? Is someone going to become a billionaire or buy a yacht from this? No. But it's a big little breakthrough in action. The cost was zero to the hospital system. Everyone was happy. So just think for a minute. If everybody in your business, if everybody in your family or community started thinking and acting like this, high velocity, high frequency, everyday innovations, just think what's possible. So here's the thing. The research is crystal clear that every human being is creative, period. It doesn't matter what your job is. You can be a creative accountant. You could be a non-creative, by the way, musician. So creativity is something, it's like a language. It's like a muscle that all of us can build, all of us can develop if we prioritize it and practice it. Second key point is that when you do, creativity can become an incredibly powerful competitive edge. Now, it doesn't happen by itself. It takes work and investment and study, but I can't imagine a better resource to invest in. When you look at the raw return on investment of time and capital against building creative capacity, nothing is even close in terms of return on investment. You might be saying, well, why not? Why should I care about this, especially in these crazy times? And you're right. We're living in unprecedented times. A pandemic that has known no likes for 100 years. Even outside of the pandemic, you've got a dizzying speed of change. You've got global competition. You've got technology transformation and advancements, digital disruption. You've got a changing workforce. You've got geopolitical turmoil. Look, you name a problem, we have it. So how do we fight back? And here's what we know. The one thing that we know for sure is that we can no longer simply rely on the models of the past and expect the same results. Models, ideas, approaches that were built in a different era are just not going to work in the soon-to-be, hopefully, post-COVID-19 landscape. So what we need to do is we need to lean into new and fresh approaches. We need to be a cultivator, a champion of big little ideas, of everyday innovations in order to succeed and soar. So I want you to just think for a minute that you have an additional role and responsibility. Whatever your business card title says, awesome, don't change it. Don't change jobs or fields or companies. But what if you also thought of yourself as an artist? That part of your responsibility was to add a little artisticness to the job. Imagination to solve problems, inventive thinking to seize opportunities. If you embrace art, and art is simply, by the way, the intersection of imagination and skill. You already have the skill or you wouldn't be on this call. But a little extra imagination, that can be the difference maker. And I really hope that together we can explore how to bring it to life. As Dale mentioned, I've had the chance to write 3 books on this exact topic. And frankly, it was driven by a deep passion. I myself am only okay at most things, probably pretty lousy at most things, my wife would tell you. The only thing I'm even halfway decent at is I'm kind of a creative guy. Not because I was born that way, but because I've taken the time to develop those skills. And what I've seen is when people and organizations develop these skills, amazing things happen. So there's all this dormant creativity lying out there. So I put myself on this crazy mission to help people unlock it. And it led me to write 3 books. Now, the research was not only based on my own experiences as a musician and an entrepreneur, but I also had the chance to interview over 200 out-of-this-world leaders, innovators that are captains of industry and celebrity entrepreneurs and CEOs and billionaires. But I also interviewed amazingly innovative teachers and artists and even hackers. People at the absolute top of their field, all around the world, all different industries. And here's what I discovered. Across this wide range of people, it turns out there's some very common patterns, common approaches, common mindsets of the most innovative folks in the world. And that's what I'm so excited to share with you today. 3 of those ideas, actually. 3 big ideas, the 3 core mindsets of everyday innovators, people that bring big little idea thinking to the surface. Here's the cool part. These are totally portable. They apply to each of us. You can take them literally today and drive them into your business. So I hope that you take an open mind and an open heart and think how you can take these principles and bring them to life for you, your business, and your family. Okay, let's dive in. Big idea number 1, the simple concept of find a way. Now, if we break that down a little bit, it implies 2 things. First of all, that there is a way. In other words, innovators' starting point is that every code can be cracked, every barrier can be penetrated. No matter how difficult the challenge may seem or feel, if you throw enough imagination in it, there's got to be a way. So they don't waste time saying, there's no way. They say, there is a way. And then it brings us to the second part, that it's their responsibility to find it. It's not your banker's responsibility or your spouse or your coworker or your accountant or your lawyer. It's our responsibility. If there's a problem and we can solve it, it's ours to be done. So it's a sense of ownership and a sense of possibility. One of my favorite quotes of all time is an ancient Chinese proverb. I just love this one. Sums it up perfectly. Man who says it can't be done should not interrupt man doing it. I've always loved that. An example. A few months back, an Air Canada flight was stuck out on the runway at the Toronto airport for 7 hours due to weather conditions. Whew. Those poor passengers. Once they gobbled up the peanuts and they drank all the booze, they were getting pretty restless, as you might imagine. So they're calling their loved ones, they're tweeting, begging the flight attendants for some food. Well, next, a well-intentioned Air Canada flight attendant, following procedure, gets on the microphone and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. There's nothing that can be done." Nothing that can be done. How many times have we heard that? How many times have some of us said that? Well, next, a nearby WestJet pilot, which is a competitive airline in Canada, overhears the commotion. But he had a different belief. He said, "I'm going to find a way." About 45 minutes later, this guy, he wheels up one of those metal staircases to the plane. He climbs on up there, bangs on the door, and when the folks inside open up the door, to their surprise, he's sitting there holding 20 pizzas for the guests. It enabled amazing tweets like this one. Check it out. Awkward but funny moment. WestJet guy walks in and says, "Hey guys, I'm from WestJet and we do things differently. Want some pizza?" Think about the impact that was created, not just for the folks on board, but as the word spread and everyone heard about this. Two identically situated organizations, same capital structure, same labor union, same price point, same everything, but different set of beliefs. One stumbles, the other soars. Now you might say, well, wasn't that guy's job to be a pilot? Yes. But his job was also to be an artist. He added a little bit of creativity. He looked above and beyond his written responsibilities to elevate his company, to serve his clients. What if every person in your company behaved and thought like that? What if each of us were artists, deploying big little idea thinking on a systematic and regular basis? Just think about what impact is possible. Brings us to our core mindset number 2. Mindset number 2 is an obsession around upgrading it. Upgrading it. The notion is that every product, every system, every process, every approach was built in a different time. Now we're in a new time. And by the way, business cycles have shifted from decades to years to months and sometimes now even weeks. So in the same way that software companies put out version 5.0, which renders version 4.0 irrelevant, they upgraded it. Innovators are always in the midst of upgrading. How can I make what I'm doing today, regardless of the success, better, different, and more modern? How can I constantly be upgrading? There was a quote that I would say to my folks as I was building my companies, so much they got sick of hearing it. The quote was simply this: someday a company will come along and put us out of business. It might as well be us. So this was the notion that about every 6 months or so, we had to upgrade our entire way of being in order to stay relevant and fresh, rather than relying on previous successes. St. Regis Hotel, Washington, D.C. The leaders of the hotel were looking around the hotel trying to upgrade it. So they're looking high and low, saying, how can we better serve customers? How can we drive value? How can we build competitive differentiation? Well, as they look around, it leads them to this empty closet. The same closet that's in every hotel room around the world. So they said, wait a minute, maybe we could upgrade it. Here's what they did next. They partnered up with luxury retailer Neiman Marcus. Now as a guest, before you arrive, you're sent an email survey asking about your size and your fashion preferences. When you walk into your room, you open up the closet, it's no longer empty. It's filled with hand-selected goods just for you. Try them on in the privacy of your room. If you like it, walk off with it, auto-billed to your hotel invoice. A little dangerous, perhaps. But think what they did here, all at once, one little idea. They activated a dead space, created a new stream of revenue, drove competitive differentiation, better served customers without a dime of capital because they partnered up with Neiman Marcus. So my question to you, with great respect, what are the empty closets in your business? What are those things that you look past a dozen times a day and say, hey, that's just the way we do it. That's just the way it's done in our industry. Man, that is an opportunity that's calling your creative soul to the surface, to imagine new possibilities, to seek out big little breakthroughs, frankly, to upgrade it. Speaking of upgrading it, Nathan's Hot Dogs, every year they host a hot dog eating competition, and they continue to upgrade it every year. Every year it gets bigger in terms of notoriety and prize money. And generally the way it works is you have these big, burly, overweight men that see how many hot dogs they can shove down in 12 minutes. And the methodology, by the way, is they just eat hot dogs the same way you would at a picnic, but faster. Enter a non-traditional competitor named Takuru Kobayashi. Goes by Kobe for short. Well, Kobe here, he said, maybe I can win this thing. By the way, he didn't even like hot dogs, but he sure liked that prize money. So he said, I'm going to upgrade it. I'm going to take a non-traditional approach and see if I can win. So first thing he does is, instead of being overweight, he trains like an athlete. He builds all this lean muscle mass. He examines how you can expand stomach capacity by drinking a lot of water. But then he got onto the business of eating hot dogs. He said, I'm going to see if I can eat for sport, not for pleasure. So first thing he does is he separates the bun from the hot dog. He realized that he could take the meat, fold it in half, down it in one gulp. The bun was giving him a hard time. He experimented with a bunch of different methodologies until he realized, he's allowed a glass of water. So he took the bun, dunks it in the water, then he squishes out the excess liquid, also can eat it very quickly. Again, wasn't eating for pleasure, was eating for sport. So here's what happens. In 90 years before Kobayashi made his first attempt, the worldwide record was 25.1 hot dogs eaten in 12 minutes, which is disgusting. But when Kobayashi made his first attempt, he ate 50. He doubled the record, not by eating more hot dogs just more quickly the same old way. He did it because he upgraded it. He took a new and fresh and defiant approach. He dissected the system, used something better and new and fresh, and made all the difference in the world. So in your business, when you want to grow, when you want to win, are you just eating hot dogs faster the same way you've always done? Or are you looking for a better approach, an upgraded strategy? Today, I want to not only give you a couple fun stories, but I want to give you a couple techniques. My first technique is one of my favorites, and it's simply called the judo flip. In other words, when you're trying to solve a problem or seize an opportunity, take a look at the way you've always done it before. Take a look at the way that everybody else does it, and then say, what's the polar opposite? What would it look like if I judo flipped it? Kobayashi judo flipped his approach to eating hot dogs. The St. Regis Hotel judo flipped their approach to driving revenue by activating a dead closet. So when you are trying to do something in your business, ask yourself, can I judo flip to discover a fresh idea? Judo flip a challenge, judo flip a threat, judo flip an opportunity. That oppositional approach will fuel progress in your business and even in your community. Which brings us to our third and final core mindset of everyday innovators. Mindset number 3, seek the unexpected. There's an expected approach that you take in your business every day, but expected approaches rarely make history. When we look at those that we revere, from Thomas Edison and Elon Musk to people like Dr. King who drove social change, these are people that made their mark by doing the unorthodox approach, by looking at things differently, by even sometimes being a little weird. That is where the magic lies, and I would really encourage you to look and push yourself to find the unexpected approach, because that's what really makes the difference. Do you ever go to the grocery store and you're faced with that insolvable problem? Do you buy the yellow bananas or the green ones? You buy the yellow bananas, they're good today, but 4 days later, the rest of that bunch is all squishy. You buy the green ones, you have to wait like a week and a half to have a decent banana. Well, if you are now in the banana business, what could you do? That's just how bananas are. I want to show you what happened when one company in Korea decided to seek the unexpected. Check out their bananas, packaged by ripeness. Here's the amazing thing. They took an unexpected approach to market, and here's what happened. First of all, they're crushing their competition in terms of sales volume, crushing. Secondly, they're charging 3 times per ounce of banana compared to the rest of the field. Same exact banana, unexpected approach to market made all the difference in the world. And if they can do that with bananas, think what you can do with the resources at your disposal. Again, here they didn't even change the product, but they added a little unexpected creativity, made all the difference in the world. Recently, the cattle industry was facing a problem: flies. Unlike horses, a cow can't just swat away the flies with their tail. And you might think it's just a nuisance, but it actually interferes with feeding and grazing and sleeping. It's really a big expense for the cattle industry. Well, researchers in Japan got together trying to solve the problem. And they first looked at all the expected approaches. Maybe they could use pesticides. Maybe they could use those electric lamps that you could zap the flies. But all those things led to a new set of problems. There was health issues. They impacted the land negatively. So they had to seek instead an unexpected approach. They started asking different questions. They said at one point, well, what other animals don't get bitten by flies? It led them to zebras. Turns out zebras rarely get fly bites. Apparently, the black and white stripes interfere with the fly's depth perception. Flies leave the zebras alone. So what did the researchers do? You guessed it. They painted the cows like zebras. Incidentally, ethical, safe paint, no cows were hurt, etc. But here's what happened. Fly bites were reduced by 70%. If they applied the same approach throughout the industry, it would save the cattle industry $1 billion a year. It's $1 billion idea, not by doing the expected approach, quite the opposite, by challenging themselves to look for that weird oddball idea, because those are the ones that leave a mark. Which leads us to our second takeaway technique. When you make a decision, big or small, this is the way all of us do, because this is the way the human mind works. What we do is we very quickly narrow the field of choice. You go from unlimited possible ideas to an extremely short list, A, B, and C. Your A, B, and C ideas, those are the obvious and easy ones, the things you've always done before. Here's my suggestion. Instead of blindly choosing A, B, or C, ask yourself, wait a minute, is there a D? Is there an E? Or I like to say, is there an option X? Option X, that's that bold, provocative, unexpected idea. The idea that makes all the difference in the world. Painting the window washers like superheroes, option X. Painting flies like zebras, or painting cows like zebras, option X. Those option X ideas might seem a little weird at first, but all progress seems weird at first. Challenge yourself to go out on a limb and discover those oddball, unorthodox approaches, because those are your best path forward. Okay, again, we covered 3 big ideas here today that are totally portable at your disposal. Idea number 1, find a way. Asking yourself, instead of throwing up your arms in defeat when there's a challenge, saying, how can I throw more creativity at it and find a way to solve the problem? Number 2, upgrade it. Being in a constant state of reinvention, reimagining old ways, and replacing them with better ways. And finally, seeking the unexpected. When we're looking for new solutions, challenging ourselves to go above and beyond the obvious and look for the weird ones, because those are the ones that you want. Okay, I'd be delighted to take some questions, but before I do, I put something together just for you. They say it takes 21 days to form a habit. When I was studying guitar, if I had a killer guitar lesson, but I didn't practice right afterward, I'd quickly forget what I learned. You only master a skill by daily practice. So if you go to 21.platypuslabs.com, Platypus Labs is my consulting firm. It's free, I won't steal your data, but you'll get from me, if you sign up, exactly and only 21 days in a row of a quick note from me once a day. 3 minutes. It's a story, an idea. You might learn something fun like cows painted like zebras. But it's the equivalent of your daily guitar lesson, your daily injection of inspiration and creativity to help you build creative muscles, to help you advance your skill set, to help you fully embrace your true creative soul. So check it out, 21.platypuslabs.com, and I think it will be a useful tool to propel you forward even in these difficult times. Before I finalize and take some questions, I just want to leave you with this. I've built companies my whole life, 30 years in business, believe it or not. And one thing that I've learned is that too often we overestimate the risk of trying something new, and we underestimate the risk of standing still. The pandemic is forcing us to stop standing still. So it's forcing us to explore new possibilities, and that is challenging, to be clear. It's difficult. But I hope that we can all look back 12 months from now and look at it as a gift, because maybe it forces us to shake things up. It forces us to reimagine how we serve and how we lead and how we win. And I hope that we can all look back with gratitude at this time, not obviously for the suffering related to the medical issues, but because it gave us a jolt. It gave us an opportunity to explore what's possible, to lead with our creative heart, and ultimately to win in our best possible way. With that, thank you so much. I hope we can keep in touch, by the way. If you want to see me on social, my social handle on all channels is just my name, Josh Linkner. And if you'd like to sign up for my blog, it's just my website, joshlinkner.com. I've been writing for 10 years every week. So with that, thank you again. With deep gratitude, I'd be delighted to hear any questions that may be on your mind.
I knew at some point I was going to do that, so I left the muted microphone up. So we've got some folks asking for the address again. So Josh, I'm going to ask that you just pop that screen up so people can write it down. We're also going to grab that web address and put it in the chat section for you as well. So I'm guessing, let's start with the platypus, the 21.platypus link that we want to share with folks.
For you right now. Let me see if I can do that correctly. Okay. There we go. So just the number 21.platypuslabs.com. That's 21 days in a row of a quick message from me once a day. That's it. Again, no spam, no marketing, none of that stuff.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that.
I'll bring you to the other one while you're at, since you asked. If you want to keep in touch with me in any way, you can find me on social, just my name, @JoshLinkner. And if you'd like to learn more or sign up for my blog, it's my website, just my name, joshlinkner.com.
Okay, so the first question in, Josh, how can we best communicate these ideas to our associates?
Excellent question. If you just run in one day and be like, hey, dude, we got to be all creative, someone's going to call security. So instead, I think we need to make the case to be creative. And the best way to do that is, first of all, shine a bright flashlight on the real risk of doing nothing. This is where so many companies go wrong. Hey, it worked in the past. Yeah, great. How'd that work out for Oldsmobile or Pan Am Airlines or Kodak? So I think we got to really take an honest look in the mirror and saying, is the point of success that we have permanent or temporary? My belief is all success is temporary in the context of many external factors that are changing at a rate like none other in history. So I don't think that we can afford to do nothing. But then what you do is you say, okay, knowing that we can't do nothing, how can we de-risk trying something creative? And here's the rub. Instead of saying, I'm going to take a swing for the fences, bet my whole company, take on irresponsible risk with one big idea and swing and hope I'm right, don't do that at all. Do the opposite. Big little breakthroughs. Lots of teeny ideas. I hope that as leaders, all of us are trying 4 or 5 ideas a week, but fixed time, fixed money experiments. And maybe 4 to 5 don't work out at all, but you didn't burn down the building. In other words, if you have an idea, instead of trying with every client that you have, try with one client on one day and measure it. If the experiment works, double the size of the experiment. If it doesn't work, flush it. So when we think about creativity, instead of bet everything on one idea, to me, that's like going to the casino and taking your life savings and putting it on a roulette spin. Instead, I think we should be doing always lots of little teeny prototypes and experiments, like make something out of Play-Doh, do a crude drawing with stick figures. And only when those experiments start to show promise, do you then systematically expand them. If you take that deliberative approach, it actually is riskier to do nothing and far less risky to try new ideas.
So I've got to tell you this quick story because I think it illustrates so perfectly everything you just led us through. I was having coffee with a socially distanced coffee with a CEO this morning of a tech company, and very innovative. He, over the last 4 weeks, had gone out and identified 4 different restaurants and visited each of those restaurants over the past 4 weeks and kept a log, writing down how each of those restaurants was responding to COVID-19, staying in business, curbside pickup, everything else. And then sharing with his large group of employees, okay, this is what innovation looks like. And it was spurring these types of ideas. Where can we get creative in our own industry to serve people quickly and to meet people where they're at as far as their expectations go in this time? And it was fascinating to see what he learned by just looking at the processes of one specific industry that was completely outside and had nothing to do with his own, but it was a major eye-opener for him on process improvement to meet people where they're at and then to carry that on into the future. So really exemplifies everything that you just led us through. I'll let you talk any more on that.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on this. I'm glad you brought that up. So what you just described there is a technique that I call the borrowed idea. And in fact, when you really study innovation, it's very often borrowed. It's borrowed from one part of life to another. There's a metalworking company that studies predatory fish and the way they clamp down on their prey to borrow that from nature and apply it to metal cutting. There are dozens and dozens of examples that we celebrate that really the initial idea came from somewhere else. So if you're working on a problem, you're like, hey, let's say you run an accounting firm. How can I deal with peak periods like tax season? Instead of only looking at other accounting firms, why don't you look at how they load and unload cruise ship passengers at peak periods in their business? So the idea is you ask yourself, where else? Where else in the world is something similar happening that I'm facing? And look in different industries, different walks of life. It could be sports or entertainment or the arts or nature. And you might find a pattern that you can grab onto, bring back home, and that pattern becomes revolutionary in your field, even if it's already accepted in another. The borrowed idea.
Right. So we have an anonymous attendee asking, where do you see the greatest opportunity for new innovation?
I'm an optimist by nature, and I also believe that there's so much dormant creative capacity in all of us. It's a hard question to answer because I see it everywhere. Like I see it in industries where people say it can't be done. I see, financial services companies saying, oh, because all the regulatory burden, which is true, by the way, but then some new technology comes out and completely disrupts it. So I think it's almost like under every rock. I don't mean to answer like a postcard, but I really believe it. In every business, in every walk of life, in every family, in every community, there's so much opportunity to innovate. For some reason, the way our brains are set up is we tend to be pattern focused. We recognize a pattern and we repeat the pattern. You touch the hot stove once, you burn yourself, you don't touch the hot stove again. But the world actually, in many cases, certainly in business, doesn't work like that. One year you touch the hot stove, you burn your hand. The next year you touch the hot stove, you get $1 billion. And so because the world is changing so quickly, I think we too often only follow the patterns of the past blindly, as opposed to injecting creativity, trying lots of things all over the place, and seeing where new ideas can emerge. And again, even in restricted industries like healthcare or finance or banking, there's always opportunities to create a better customer experience, a better way of leading, a better way of recruiting, a better way of managing your office. So I hope that people see a big blank canvas out there. And I hope that I've given you a couple fresh paints and colors to experiment and to play around with.
So the next question, what are some of the best ways to get teams to break out of their shells?
One of the best ways to get teams to break out of their shells is give them a new technique. One of the things that people lack in creativity isn't natural talent, by the way. That's proven. The biggest blocker, first of all, is fear. So fear can hamper our crazy thinking, and also structure. So if someone just says, hey, let's brainstorm, brainstorming is a perfectly designed exercise to yield mediocre ideas. Why? Because of fear. You're in a group of 6 people, you share your safe ideas, but you hold your crazy ones back, because you don't want to look foolish and you don't want to upset the boss. And God forbid, what if they like your idea and then you're responsible for it and it fails? So I would suggest that if you go on my website, joshlinkner.com, I have a piece that I wrote, 9 non-traditional brainstorming techniques, which completely eliminate the fear and give you some structure to help brainstorm. And I'll just share one of them very quickly. It's called role storming, R-O-L-E, role storming. So Dale, let's say you and I and a few colleagues were doing a brainstorming exercise. If you had some wild, crazy idea that you really weren't totally sure of, you probably wouldn't share it because you don't want to look foolish. In role storming, what we do is you still take on a real world business challenge, but you're pretending that you're somebody else. In other words, you're brainstorming in character, in a different role. So Dale, let's say you were brainstorming instead as Steve Jobs. No one's going to laugh at Steve for coming up with a big idea. They might laugh at Steve for coming up with a small one. So now you, also known as Steve Jobs, you're totally liberated. You can say anything you want, no fear whatsoever of retribution. You're not responsible for the idea. Heck, that was Steve's idea. I know it sounds goofy, but I'm telling you, it absolutely works. The way you do it is everybody in the room chooses a character. You could be an inventor, a literary figure, a sports hero, a movie star, a villain, whoever you want, real or living, fictitious or dead. And anyway, what you do is you brainstorm as if you are that person. Like, how would Oprah Winfrey tackle that? How would Hemingway tackle that? And if you don't believe me on how this works, I did this with a group of executives at Sony Japan one time. I met this dude who was the stiffest human being I've ever met. Dark suit, white shirt, tie like this, stiff as a board. We got him role storming as Yoda. I have never seen personal transformation like this. This guy's jacket's off, his tie's undone. He's like leaping around the room. I didn't teach him to be creative. He had that inside of him all along, as do all of us. But we put him in a different structure, put him in a different role, removed the fear, and this guy was liberated. So that's one simple technique of many, but if you have some technique and you can remove the fear, people's creativity, it's our natural state, it will come forward.
All right, Josh, last question. Do you have a new book in the works? Are you working on anything? When's the next book coming out is actually the question from one of our viewers.
Mr. and Mrs. Viewer, I feel like I love you just by asking that question, so thank you for that. I'm kidding aside. My most recent book was published in 2017 called Hacking Innovation. And that book was around, I was looking for a new model for creativity, and I studied hackers. So I spent 3 years interviewing criminals and felons and cybersecurity experts and law enforcement, not to teach or promote cybercrime, obviously, but to say, what can we learn from hackers and deploy in a legitimate manner in our businesses? So I know that our whole organization is about trust. I just want to be super clear. I'm not encouraging criminal or inappropriate activity. It's more of what can we learn from how they solve problems and apply it in a positive, legitimate way. So that book is available. You can buy a signed copy on my website. But anyway, your question is, I am working on a new book, coincidentally called Big Little Breakthroughs. It's coming out in April of 2021. I'm hard at work on it. Literally, like I spent 6 hours earlier today cranking away on it. I've never been more excited about a book. It's not available yet for pre-order, but if we stay in touch, and I hope that we can, it will be out in April of 2021. And it's all about this principle. How do you cultivate little ideas as a daily habit in order to fuel massive gains in our business and our lives?
All right. And then how do you spark change and innovation with executives of a large organization when you work at a local level? So how do you lead from the middle or even lower on the food chain, so to speak, higher up in the organization?
Generally, people that you have to get approval from have a very low appetite for wide sweeping change, but hopefully a higher appetite for something if you call it a prototype or an experiment. So the trick is, if you're in the middle of that structure, get a teeny amount of resources. It could be like $100 an hour, and stack the deck in your favor. Run an experiment where you can put your shoulder behind it and demonstrate something positive. Put early points on the board. Once you do that, people then they say, oh, that experiment worked. Maybe I'll give you some more resources. And the idea is get early experiments where you can prove out a concept and show some momentum and show some tangible results. That is the best way to free up more resources as you go higher and higher up the food chain. And over time, that's when you get a big blank check from a CEO, not because just you asked, it's because you proved something along the way.
Josh Linkner, thank you so much. It has been an absolute pleasure spending the last 38 minutes with you. We're over time for this 30-minute webinar. You were incredibly kind and generous to stick around and answer those questions. We really appreciate it. I'll remind folks, 3 books: Disciplined Dreaming, The Road to Reinvention, Hacking Innovation. The website is joshlinkner.com, JOSHLINKNER.com. We really appreciate you spending these last few minutes with Better Business Bureau, Josh, as we are working to build trust in trying times. With that, this webinar is recorded and will be posted on our YouTube page shortly and available for you to share with others and other organizations as you would like. And we definitely encourage you to do that. Go out and innovate in these 3 specific, very helpful ways. Josh, you have a great day. And to all of our viewers, thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Thank you. Be safe.